countdown.
Huh.
Now it says we're live. See if that countdown changes. Because there's a delay. Yeah, that worked. Well, welcome to anyone that might be joining us. We're going to hang on for a second and let people catch up to the Facebook stream. If you are joining us, we had to have a couple people on there. That's good. So if you are there, if you want to put a thumbs up or a heart or say something in the chat so we know you're there, that would be awesome. Okay, we have a few people joining us, so that's good. I want to say it's early, but I don't think for most people it is that early.
It's just been a busy Monday morning. Happy Monday. We don't usually do these on Monday.
I know, because usually our Mondays are crazy. But there's someone from Florida.
Awesome.
Lindsay, nice to see you. Mary Beth. Hello, Mary Beth. That's good. All right. So we will get started in a second.
1:30 a.m. Oh my gosh, you're dedicated.
Wow. You just must be like not able to sleep. So you decided to join us on Facebook Live, or you just like working really late at night. That's awesome. I just saw this little Facebook video from someone in Australia of this little girl singing, sitting on a fence post singing, and the horse comes over and then like rests his head on her and she keeps singing and then the horse falls asleep. It's so cute. Anyway, CJ's here. Pam's here from the UK. What time is it in the UK, I wonder?
Be about 7 hours ahead.
Yeah, I think so.
So getting into evening.
Well, that's awesome. All right. So what I was going to say a second ago was, if you want to share this with anybody, you're welcome to do that. We would appreciate it if you know anyone that wants to learn about marketing or just talk about marketing. And I'm going to put this link in now because I always forget to do it. But we do have Pam said it's 5 p.m. in the UK. We do have a Facebook group called Grow Your Pet Care Business. I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. Pet Care. Hang on. This is why I don't multitask. All right, so I'm putting that in there too. But we do have a Facebook group called Grow Your Pet Care Business that anybody's invited to be on, as long as you are kind to other people and are willing to share and learn from other people. You're welcome to join that Facebook group. And we do try to not do promotions on that Facebook group. So if vendors get on there and start promoting their stuff, I just delete them. And if people are mean, I delete them. So, but it's a great way to talk to others about, questions you might have about your business. And if you have follow-on questions after this Facebook live chat, you can post them there too. And Susan and I both monitor that, but we also have Jess, who is our moderator, and she's great. And then you guys are great. You help each other out all the time. So feel free to join that group. All right. Do you want to talk about the marketing first and then the other stuff after? All right. So we're talking about marketing. So I guess if you've got questions on this topic, feel free to post them in the comments and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. But in the past, several weeks, I guess, since things have started to open up again, ever since the closure from COVID, Susan and I have seen lots and lots of people kind of waiting around for their clients to come back. And what we've learned is that a lot of you who were running really successful businesses before COVID didn't have to do a lot of advertising or a lot of marketing. You just kind of built your facility and people came to it, and you just did kind of maintenance level, what I would consider maintenance level marketing. So you occasionally put an ad somewhere, or you occasionally posted stuff on Facebook, but there was nothing really intentional about it because you had lots of clients. And so what we're finding is a lot of people now are finding that they actually do need to start marketing again. And that's what we've been talking about to a lot of our members. So we wanted to just kick that idea around on what people are doing. So you want to talk about some of the things that we've seen people doing with special, Susan?
Yeah, I'm glad Mary Beth's on here, because Mary Beth, I did see one thing we we are recommending is that maybe you kind of create an event out of something like a weekend and put together kind of a special package to invite people to lodge, even if they're not going out of town. And I know we had mentioned this early on, and I think I saw on Mary Beth's Facebook page that maybe she did that for Mother's Day or something early on. I'm just wondering how it went, if she had any lessons learned she's willing to share. But I think this is a time where you may have to actually do a call to action to invite people to come in, even because they may not be planning to travel. But if you put the suggestion in their brain, they may decide, oh, it would be good for my pet to go visit their friends and hang out, and there's some stuff I can do, and they'll have a great time. I know JJ went to camp last week and just spent one night, even though I was home. But it's important to me and to his care provider that he stays used to going and being with his friends. And so we just did an overnight. And I knew he had a lot more fun than me when he sits here with me working. We're having
a lot of fun. I saw him on Facebook.
Yeah. So maybe even just inviting that their play buddies miss them, come in, and you may have to put a little bit of a special together just to kind of entice them. Maybe you do, one activity or a 2-for-1, buy one play date and or play time and get a second one free, or get a half off a departure bath if they come in and lodge with you for night.
Mary Beth just posted, we did a Mother's Day special, added bath, massage, etc., and it sent an email blast through Pet Exec. So that's a great idea. And especially, that brings me, I'm going to give out some other ideas that I've seen on Facebook, but that will take me to the idea of whether or not you're even collecting email addresses. So we've literally talked to some people who are like, how do I get in touch with these people? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, the starting point of any good marketing is you have to be able to contact the people. So, and that's obviously most of us have our current clients, because whatever POS system you're using, most likely for current active clients, their contact information is in there. But there's a whole lot around how to collect other email addresses, which we'll go into in a second. Some of the other things I've seen on Facebook, though, from some of our members, I've seen Canine Cabana is doing a big push for kind of a camp, summer camps, and every week they're focusing on a different part of the country or part of the world, and basically having a passport idea where you can sign up your dog to go visit all these different areas, and then they do something theme related during the week. So that's another idea, I think, just to, again, if people are home with their dog, it doesn't necessarily mean they won't bring them to daycare or to lodging, but you might need to put the idea in their head, because they're not sitting at home thinking, unless their dog is really driving them crazy, then they might be thinking, where can I take my dog? But most of them are probably just thinking, well, my dog's home, so I don't need to go to daycare. But if you can build up an idea, a party, an event, something, and then tell them, hey, you really should bring your dog back, they probably will. And that's what we're finding with some of the marketing. So the passport idea is another good one. I've seen a couple people do the movie nights where they're encouraging, if you have areas in your town where they're showing movies, we have a lot of drive-ins that have opened in various places in Colorado Springs. So buying a movie ticket, 2 movie tickets for the pet parents, and encouraging a date night for them, and then telling them to bring their dog overnight, and the dog will have their own movie night. So I've seen a couple of people do that. That also helps support some of the local businesses in your area. Same thing with date nights with a restaurant. If restaurants are opening up in your area, you could encourage someone to go out to a restaurant and you'll take care of their dog for the evening. And then really just focusing on the reality of telling pet parents to think about the future when they will travel again. And we want to, kind of what Susan just said, we want to help them to keep their dog in the routine of being okay when they're away from home. 4th of July is a great one to recommend people bring the dog to your facility instead of being home when the fireworks are going off, if you're having fireworks in your area. So that's another, holiday just around the corner that you could take advantage of. So some of those things I think are really important to just make sure you're reminding people that you're still open and that you have really fun reasons for their dogs to come.
And when JJ went to camp, even Debbie noticed he was a little more whiny when she left him. And so even though, you know, I know all this and we've talked about that the dogs are going to have adjustment issues when they come back, my own dog apparently is having some. So I'm having to leave him alone more just because I've been here more. I'm usually traveling and he's home alone more than he hasn't been. And so that people don't really realize, I didn't even realize that it was impacting my own dogs that way. So just doing some education around that as part of your marketing, and then saying, you know, bring them in to see their friends, get them used to this. As life gets back to normal for you, it will for your pet as well.
Yeah. And then CJ said, I did discounted daycare packages during quarantine to keep my clients active. Mary Beth said, fun factor weeks. I love that. Fun factor weeks have been drawing because of Father's Day, ties, beach ball party week. So whatever, really, it doesn't have to be extravagant. It's just really coming up with ideas that kind of tie into your community. So at holidays like Father's Day, those are natural, and at least in the United States are nationwide, but you could also do something that is specific to your area. So if you have a place where there are beaches, doing a beach ball week, or if you don't, you could do it. Hey, we never get to go to the beach, so we're going to have one here at the facility. If you're living in a place like Colorado where we don't have beaches. Here in my town in Colorado, they're opening all the mountains back up. So the mountain trails and stuff. So something with a Jeep theme or mountain theme, I mean, those would go over really well here. So get your team together and come up with some of those ideas, and then start reaching out to your client base. And that's the other thing that we've really seen, those facilities who are proactively contacting their clients with emails and by picking up the phone and actually talking to them are having some of the best success. And I know sometimes you're kind of like, I don't really know what to do on the phone, but just calling and checking in with people. If you haven't seen them in a while, just calling and saying out of concern, like, how are you doing? How's the dog doing? What we're finding is just those phone calls are causing some people to realize, oh, you know what? I hadn't really thought about it, but he is kind of clingy to me. Maybe I should just bring him and drop him off for the night or whatever. So through those conversations, if you have someone that's good on the phone and can kind of listen to what the client's saying and pick up on potential ways you can help them fill a need, you might find through some of those phone calls, we found clients who, oh, I would love to bring my dog, but I'm just afraid to go out right now. So maybe you try to pick up that dog and do a transport services. I've had some people that have called clients, and then the client says, I would love to bring them, but I'm just worried about coming in contact with people. So then you tell them about your contactless pickup or drop off, so you can alleviate their concerns that way. So a lot of times by doing those phone calls, you can listen to the client's concerns and then help them to solve those, and then pick up, additional revenue by bringing people back in that way too. Do you have any comments on that, Susan?
Well, I was just thinking, I know, unfortunately, I have heard of some pet businesses that have closed permanently. So you may have competitors in your marketplace that aren't reopening. So you may need to come out and make a splash that you are open and what services you're providing to pick up maybe some clients from competitors that aren't going to open back up. So now's the time to maybe be a little more assertive with some advertising to non-clients to get them in. Or even just explaining what you're doing to keep clients and dogs safe, that people may compare, oh, I haven't heard that from my place. Maybe I should try these guys. They seem, to be kind of on top of health and wellness and caring about that.
Yeah, and don't assume that your clients know you're open. I've talked to a lot of people who, when they started reaching out to their pet parents, the pet parents were like, oh, I would have brought him. I had no idea you reopened. And with the country, around the country, all the states opening at different times and the different services opening at different times, even in Colorado where we're in like phase 3 of opening, it's still confusing to me that some stores and then some stores are allowed to open, but they opt not to open. And so it's very confusing. So unless that pet parent's going to call every place they want to go, which isn't going to happen, you need to be proactive about making sure they know that you are actually open and what safety protocols you have in place. Because I've heard from some people who are like, I'm I'm sick of doing the protocols. I don't want to do them anymore. And that's obviously a business decision. I would just make sure that, if you don't care about protocols, at most, it's just going to annoy you if you have to follow them. That's the reality. If you really are concerned about the protocols, you aren't going into the business if those protocols are not in place. So I would say err on the side of keeping your protocols in place right now for cleaning, for contactless pickup and drop off, for masks. Most places are not requiring the masks, but in some states they are. But again, if I want to drop my dog off at daycare and I think masks are stupid, I will probably still put a mask on and drop my dog off. But if I am totally convinced that masks are the best way to go and you don't require that, I'm not coming in at all. You see? So I would say you're better erring on the side of caution in this situation. Mary Beth had said making up boarding revenue by dog training. It's up 200%. That's awesome, Mary Beth. As parents stuck at home realize their dogs are unruly. And again, this is another thing. A lot of pet parents might not think about doing training, and then they're having these issues with their dog at home. So if you offer that service, or you can outsource or find a trainer to affiliate with, that's another great way to generate revenue during these crazy times that we're in right now. I want to just switch to talking a little bit about marketing. So I mentioned earlier, we literally have had people that don't have contact information to reach out to anybody other than people who had been with them recently, which is a great start. But I would actually say the bigger, broader aspect of marketing in the pet care industry, I feel like, is one area for lots of opportunity. How many of you, and I won't make you say yes or no, but just in your mind, think about how many of you have some kind of way, if somebody comes to your website, that you can collect the email from them or a phone number from them. And I would say across the industry, it's very low. It's very rare that I go to a pet industry website, somebody's dog daycare boarding training facility, where I have any opportunity to even leave my email address. Most of the time, it's just all the information about your facility, your hours, your services. I can come in there and look at it and then just leave, and you never know I was on your website. That's a problem. I would consider that a problem, because if you don't know who came to your website, you can't even start to build a relationship with them. So having your current clients' email addresses is great, but I would be trying to collect email addresses or text numbers, whichever is your preference, or both, anytime you can, which means sending out things that are important to your client base. One of the most common ones we talk about is when I moved to Colorado, I was on Facebook, and one of the first Facebook ads I saw was giving away a sheet of 10 best hiking places for your dog. I didn't know who was doing that. I didn't care. I just clicked on the button because I just moved here and I wanted to know the 10 best hiking places for my dog. I ended up on an email list for a local dog daycare boarding facility. And I thought it was brilliant. So they started sending me other information that was just helpful information for somebody that was new to Colorado. It was super helpful. And that's how I got to know about that particular facility. So doing things like that, things where you're not selling your services, you're just trying to be helpful. I mean, you could do stuff right now on how to help your dog not get separation anxiety before you go back to work, like 3 tips to keep your dog or to prepare your dog for you going back to work, with everybody working from home right now. You could do, best places to go with your dog, hiking, walking, whatever. You could do, when restaurants start to open up, you could do the restaurants that allow dogs to be on the patios, like any of that kind of stuff, where what's happening is, in order to give them that content, they have to give you your email address. So that's one of the things I would really look at doing, so that you can collect emails from people who might not be on your database or in your database right now. Because the reality is, the more people you can build a relationship with, the more people you have as potential clients. And I think we take good care of the current clients, but not so much looking at anybody that might be new. So that's a question, is to really think about, for your facility, how do you get new clients in? Do you want to talk about phone? Because collecting email over the phone, I think, or contact information over the phone, I think, is also important.
Right. If you have inquiry calls that people call and are just asking about your services and what you do, don't just respond back to them. Take friendly control of the conversation and say, oh, well, tell me a little bit about your pet. Or first off, in case we get disconnected, can I have your name and phone number? And then that way you get that right away and you can go ahead and set them up in your point of sale system as a prospect or new lead, even if they don't book. And I think it's important, we would call that segmenting and knowing whether it's an existing client or a lead or a prospect. So take control of that conversation and know what information you want to get, which I would say should be first and last name, phone and email if you can get both, and a little bit of information about whether they have a dog or a cat and age, so that you may also know what kind of services they might be interested in. And then once you have that, you can take control of the conversation and explain your services and why your center may be a good fit. And if they don't, book an appointment or a tour, then you'll at least have that lead to follow up with. So I think being more assertive to make sure every prospect phone call or on-site walk-in tour, which we may not have a lot of those right now with COVID, that you're getting information and creating a prospect record in your point of sale system.
Yeah, and I think you'd be surprised at how many people contact your business and you have no idea who they are after the phone hangs up. So it's what you're really doing is relying on them to decide they want to use you and call back. And if you know anything about sales, generally it takes anywhere, depending on what study you read, anywhere from 4 to 10 contacts with somebody before they will actually buy, like not just for the pet care industry, but just in general, selling anybody. To anything to anybody. It's going to take 4 to 10 contacts. If you think about that and you have the person who calls you and maybe doesn't book anything right then, you're just waiting for them hopefully to contact you back or go to your website again or make another call or come in, and you can do a lot to help that process if you sit down and plan it out.
Because you will stand out in the other pet care centers, probably that they call, if you do a follow-up and say, hey, we really enjoyed hearing about Fluffy and JJ. And if you wanted you to know that we have this party going on, it'd be a great time for them to come in and meet some new play buddies. You're going to stand out that, man, they want my business. They remembered me and my dogs. I like this place. They really care. And I'm sure you're going to stand out in the marketplace compared to your competitors that they also call who's not doing that.
Yeah, and that one of my best stories when I had my daycare and training facility was a woman who came to our training classes, and every single time she came, she would tell me how much she loved our facility, how much she loved the training classes. She's so happy to be here, And so finally, after like 3 weeks of this, I finally asked her, what makes us so, so great? Like she just could not stop talking about us every time I would talk to her. And I was expecting her to say like, oh, we're so nice and we are amazing at what we do and, brilliant training and all that. You know what she said when I said, why do you like us so much? She was like, you guys called me back right away. And there was a part of me that was like, that's the bar. Like, that's the bar I'm trying to reach of like excellence is just, I called you back. I was kind of disappointed she didn't say how great I was. But anyway, I think you're right. It's that. And again, you have to do this in a way that's not all salesy. And when you're doing email campaigns or what we call funnels, and I'll just talk about like an introduction funnel. When you're first, we talk about it like dating before you get married. Like if you find somebody you like, and you haven't met them before, it's not going to necessarily be in your best interest to just walk up to them and go like, hey, let's, get married. Most people are going to be like, no. But if you, meet them and do some safe things together and talk to each other, over time, maybe that grows into something. It's same thing with your clients. If you have a brand new client that reaches out to you and contacts you about something, you don't just want to just go right for the, hey, come on in and we'll sign your dog up and all that. Because especially in the pet care facility, this is a relationship industry. I mean, we're taking care of people's living, breathing pets who are part of their family. They're not just going to be like, okay, I'll just drop them off, whatever. I'm not going to even know who you are. Some people will do that, mostly won't. Most of them won't. So you want to have a sequence, what we call a sequence, to nurture that relationship. So what it would look like typically is there's some kind of initial contact. Maybe they called you and you got their name and phone number and email like Susan talked about, or maybe they went on your website and signed up for your newsletter, which Karen said she's got an opt-in, which is awesome, Karen, so they can opt into their newsletter. Or maybe they saw something on Facebook where you were giving away that, 10 places to hike with your dog. That's your initial contact. So you then are being helpful to them. If they're calling you, you're providing them information about your services. After that initial contact, I would plan on about 2 to 3 days later following up with them somehow. And with that person that called you, like Susan said, you might just follow up with an email saying, it was great to talk to you. Here's something and you want to give them something that will be helpful. You don't necessarily want to sell them on something or tell them to come in for a tour right then. So I would look at saying, hey, one idea might be, hey, thanks for contacting us. I thought you might like this article on, things to know if your dog's happy, or stress signals, or canine body language, or whatever. The place where I opted in for the 10 places to hike for your dog, a couple days later, they sent me places where I could take my dog for dinner that allowed dogs on the patio. So that was their follow-on email. It's up to you what you're going to provide to them, but it's basically you're just contacting them to say, hey, we talked to you, or you reached out to us, and here's something we just want to give you for free that's might be helpful to you. That's all you're doing. And you might do 1 or 2 of those. And then that 4th email, then you would say some kind of call to action. And that call to action is going to be something relatively easy. So it might be call us to schedule a tour. It might be come in on this date for a tour. It might be a link to schedule their own tour. It might be, it might be something where you're asking them to purchase something at a low price. So maybe, or do an evaluation for $15 or whatever your evaluation costs. You wouldn't necessarily just go right for could you book 3 weeks of vacation with us? So go for something a little bit smaller. And then that's how you start to build a relationship. And the more you can automate all of that, the better. So I like to use systems that will allow me to get that first contact, and then the rest of the emails go out automatically. So if you can do that, that's even better because it saves you time. It takes time to initially build the funnel campaign, but then it's automated after that. But the idea is now you're connecting with that person 3 to 4 times before you're ever asking them to do anything, which increases your relationship with them and their potential to buy something from you, book their dog, come in for a tour, whatever. Any comments on all of that, Susan?
No, I think if you want to do it to where it's a general campaign for anybody that contacts you, regardless of service, then your follow-up series is going to have to be generic. I think right now some good things to put in would maybe be 3 do it at home, easy enrichment activities that you could do with your dog. The muffin tin game, and explain how they could play that. Something that's easy with things that people would have around the house. Even stuffing an empty toilet roll with treats and easy things like that. Don't assume all pet parents know to do those things, because they don't necessarily, or if they saw it, they may have forgotten it. And when they get busy at work, they may not be doing, some of the enrichment type activities. So you could build that in. Make it line up with what you and your brand represent, and, kind of tie into that as well. But don't think that people won't respond to this, because they will. And whatever you're doing for opt-in now, monitor to see how many opt-ins are you getting, and maybe switch it up, because things I've read, people aren't opting in to be on a newsletter as much as they used to. They want to know what specific information am I going to get from that that's going to be helpful to me. So if you're getting great opt-ins to your newsletter, then keep it up. But I might try something else to see if you could get numbers up.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that to Karen too, that we do a lot of testing. So since you've had an opt-in for a newsletter on your website already, I would just go back and maybe pull the last 3 to 6 months, probably 6 months, because the last 3 months may be totally skewed with COVID, but go to, you know, get an average of like, this is how many people and you should be able to find that in your software, whatever you're using for that opt-in, and then change it out to be something like, you know, enrichment activities for your dog, or 10 places to take your dog, or whatever. Just try something different, and then let that go for a month to 3 months, and then see which is bringing you most. But to be clear, when people opt into anything for the Dog Gurus, you also end up on our newsletter. So when you're opting in for something, I would still be putting them on your newsletter, so you can still, you know, eventually that's part of they get the initial welcome campaign that we've set up, and then they get on our newsletter. So then after that, they'll get monthly newsletters from us anyway. But I think that's a great way to test it, and then see, you'll find that some things resonate better with people, you know, than others. And the idea is whatever's working the best, I would keep using it. But since you have a starting point, it would be a great way to experiment.
Yeah, and then see if you know how you got your different leads, which some services are better. So if you know they came in for this opt-in, how many of those then eventually do convert into a paying customer? Because Robin and I have had some opt-ins we've used, which we get a lot of names, but we found out they weren't necessarily our target clients and turning into customers. So there's a lot of data to track along this process, which is really why they call it a funnel. You want to see, you know, how big are the leads that you're getting at the top, and then how many of them follow down into the funnel to where they actually buy from you.
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up, is over time looking at how well your whatever capture system you're using. I think Susan just got kicked off because of she's having a thunderstorm in Texas. So she told me I might get kicked off. The internet's bad. Now I'm on my own. Anyway, looking at what your opt-in is, and then how well it converts over time, because like Susan said, we ran an opt-in that was just doing gangbusters. Like when we would look at the numbers, we were like, everybody wants this opt-in. It is the greatest thing ever. We were literally getting hundreds of people a week, and we ran an ad on Facebook. So we were getting hundreds of people. It was like blowing away any other opt-in we've ever done. But then so we ran that for like a month, had literally thousands of people opt into it. And I forget what it was now, but after a month, we turned off the ad. And then what we typically do is we wait a couple months, because then they're in some campaigns. So we waited a couple months, and none of those people bought anything. And then it turns out, when we ended up researching this, there's Susan's coming back. Hang on. When we researched it, what we found was, I just said you probably got kicked off because of the thunderstorm.
What was weird is I could hear you, but I was gone. So yeah, it was weird.
Oh, that's weird.
I know.
Typical woo-woo. Anyway, so once we went back and researched that particular opt-in, it gave us a ton of emails. It gave us nobody that bought anything. And it turned out it was mainly pet parents, which obviously for the Dog Gurus, pet parents are not our client. And so we were getting all of these people. I wish I could remember, because I tell you guys to all promote this, because pet parents loved that opt-in. But for us, we were like, that opt-in brings in all of the wrong people. And so it was really interesting to see what was working. But we were so excited until we realized nobody was actually buying. And then we finally realized they were all pet parents. That is not who we're marketing to. So all these pet parents were getting stuff about, growing your business and that kind of thing. So you do want to watch over time if you're getting the right people for whatever kind of opt-in you're using. So Penelope said, what are your impressions of live chat on a website? I get an alert that someone's on my site, but if they don't initiate the chat, I think it's creepy. Actually, it kind of is creepy, but it's not creepy anymore. I mean, I'm on websites all the time where a chat box pops up and just says, do you want to, if you have any questions, contact me. I've actually seen studies that say that, especially if you're in the middle of some kind of promotion, that chat boxes can increase your sales dramatically. And so it's something that Susan and I have started to think about using. But for us, because we're a virtual company and we all are online at different times, you would have to do it the way that yours says, is that if you happen to be online and you get an alert and can quickly go there and just say, if you have questions, let me know. I would test it and see. I don't think it's creepy anymore. I think people are used to those. I mean, on any given day, I would say 15 to 20% of the websites I go to have that kind of chat box. And I very seldom use it unless I'm actually about to buy. And that's the thing, is that the people who will engage with the chat box are probably a lot closer in the buying cycle. So if you can answer their questions immediately and get them to book a tour or give you more information about their dog or commit to something, I think it's worth trying. I mean, I would say at the very least, try it for a few weeks and see how successful it is. So I like that idea. So I think for everybody, I think across the board in terms of pet care facilities, I think just really working on how you're connecting with people, how you're getting them into your database, and then what are you doing with that information once they're in your database. And probably this is a good time, if you haven't already done it, if you've got a lot of emails and you haven't heard from any of those people in a long time, this is a good time to send out, a get reacquainted kind of email, because you may find clients out there that haven't used you in a while, but they might come back now if you give them ideas like we talked about at the beginning and give them a reason to, consider coming in. And just the thing I would say to remember is when you're finally at the point of connecting with them, you want to make sure you're asking them to do something. So you do those few helpful emails that are just good content and helpful content for them. But at some point you have to ask them to do something. It's what we call a call for action, which is going to be most likely book a tour or call us and schedule a tour. But give them something concrete to do so that you can then continue to build that relationship.
And I would say definitely start tracking your incoming phone calls. You may be surprised at how many missed opportunities you're getting there, and you may need to work on training your team to be better at converting sales on initial phone call.
So Diane said, we have a chat box, pay a service for it, and it's been really good for answering questions, making reservations, and getting testimonials. So that's awesome. I definitely think people are getting more and more used to using those chat boxes. We have a chat box on it's not a chat box, it's a pop-up if you have questions. And since we have always had on our website a contact us area, so you can contact us and then send us an email. It's through a form, and those go to our support system. Well, when we redid our website, which was, I guess, the end of last year, and we added a little pop-up area where that exact same form is in a pop-up, it has dramatically increased the number of emails that would get sent to us. So I just thought it was interesting because it's nothing different. It's the exact same form. The only and the form still exists on the contact us page. The only difference is there's a little pop-up now that pops up and you can type it in. I just think it's easier for people. And so now they're like, oh, let me ask this quick question. So I do think if that was a chat box, we would see similar results. So, and I guess the last thing is to just really say, going one step further, because there's the whole marketing aspect and collecting emails and making sure you're able to reach out to these people with new ideas and new suggestions. But then there's the whole sales part of it. So marketing is one thing and sales is another. So if you don't have sales training, I would definitely look at getting sales training. We typically recommend Lori Davis from Paramount Success Group if you need that kind of training, but it makes a huge difference. I will tell you, on the most simple level, you probably have tons of people that call and would book a tour, except no one ever asks them to. So the conversation usually is like, oh, you answer the phone, the person's like, hey, this is who I am. And you're like, yes, how can I help? You answer all their questions, about your hours, about your services. And then it's like, okay, thanks for calling. Nobody even asked the person if they wanted to come in. Like that, at the very basic level, that I had a guy doing sales training with me, teaching me how to do sales training with the coaching program that Susan and I are in. And the statistic he gave was something like, you can increase sales by, I think it was like 30% just by getting your people to ask for a call for action on the phone. And it doesn't, and what he was saying is you don't even have to train them. Like, obviously you should train them on sales, but his point was, you don't even have to do a ton of sales with them. Just tell them, ask the person to schedule a tour or ask the person to bring their dog in for an evaluation or whatever. just ask them, but we don't even ask them, and we don't teach our most of the time we don't teach our people to ask them. So you're missing, 30% of people right there that might come in for a tour if your person on your phone just said, can I schedule you to come in for a tour? Or can I schedule your dog for an evaluation if you're doing daycare or whatever it is?
And just a tip in sales to increase that more is give them a choice. Would you like to come in for a tour on Monday at 5 or Tuesday at 10 or, whatever? Give them a choice of time so that you're not asking a yes, no. Again, you want to do an evaluation. Would mornings or afternoons fit best in your schedule? I have Friday or Monday available.
So my story on that, I was my pastor's administrative assistant in Virginia. I helped him with his scheduling. So I volunteered at the church and I became his administrative assistant. So he used to always have evening appointments. And so one day I sat with him and he was like, I'm up at the church like 5 nights a week. And I just really need to not do this counseling. I don't know, because people only will come in, in the evenings. And so I was like, okay, let me work on that. Well, after like a month, he had no evening appointments. He had like once a week, he would have an evening appointment. And he was like, how did you do that? And I was like, I just started going, do you want to come in at Tuesday at 3 or Thursday at 4? And then the people would just pick one of those two. And I think this is the same exact thing I did with my dog training, private dog training lessons, because people would always want to have Saturday and evening appointments for private lessons. Same exact thing. I started saying I knew some people really only could come in weekends and evenings. So I would save 1 night a week, and that would be and I would tell people, if you want evening, I'm booked 3 weeks out. But otherwise I have Tuesday at 2 or Thursday at 4. You want one of those? And they would take time off of work and go. And that was the same thing with his schedule. It really is psychologically different for people when you give them those two choices. And usually 9 times out of 10, they'll pick one of the two options you have. Instead of just saying, oh, I'll call you back when I decide, or just let us know and we'll be here. That's how we typically end the phone call, is we just say, well, call us back when you're ready to schedule a tour. And so just that simple thing can help. I'll say we had a few comments.
Yeah, I'll talk about. So really think about, to me, marketing is definitely getting in leads and prospects. So do you have a process and different avenues to do that? Then once you have the prospects, what are you doing to nurture them, like Robin said, and start building that relationship and trust, which is so important in our industry. And then once you have that, what is your sales process? And then for existing clients, like we have found this, and it still stays true for pet care. If a client came to you because they want a daycare for their dog, they're very happy with daycare, but they might not even know you do any type of grooming services. So there is also an opportunity to market to existing clients services they're not using. And again, you have to have data and information and be able to segment your list, but it's a real opportunity. So it's definitely thinking about marketing and sales in these different pieces and making sure you have proactive systems in place for all of them. And I think you will see your numbers go up. And you can track it and find out.
Yeah, and I think it's really true. It's embarrassing how many of my clients, when I had training in daycare, and you have to recall that I had totally different staff. So I had training staff and I had daycare staff. And I would get clients that would be like, they would tell me. I would have a client that would come to my daycare and go, oh, so-and-so is going wherever to training. And I'm like, did you mean to just slap me in the face? Because that was just totally rude that you just said that to me. Obviously I wouldn't say that to them, but that's what I'm thinking. Well, then turns out they didn't have any idea that I did training. And I'm like, how could you not know I did training? But I wasn't very proactive at that cross selling. I figured it out after a while. And Susan, I know you've had the same situation where people didn't know you did one service because they always used your other service. So I do think that's a really good idea to segment your list and then figure out, these people do daycare all the time, but they've never once come in for grooming, or we've never done any kind of training with them. And then you can cross market those and increase your revenue that way. 9 times out of 10, if they love you for one service and you have great services across the board, because it's part of your brand, they're going to use you for other services. They would usually prefer that if they realize you have it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy low cost way to increase revenue. And if you're adding new revenue streams, you can't tell people too many times. Don't assume because you sent out one email or posted it once on your Facebook page, everybody knows. They don't. People don't open emails. They don't see all the posts. So you've got to have a lot of repetition in. And you may even make that part of when the phone rings saying, oh, and do you have a minute for us to tell you about this new whatever we're doing? And just invite them to participate if they're calling you for something else, or make some outbound calls and let people know.
Yeah, and MailChimp and Constant Contact, which are probably the two most common CRMs people use. You should, if you have Ginger or Paul Loyalty or Pet Exec, any of the ones that will actually send emails, you can check to see if they have this ability too. But a lot of them will have an ability to know who opened the email or not, and you can set it up to resend it to people who didn't open the email. So that's another way to automate some of your systems. And I know a lot of people that say email marketing is dead. I will tell you that email marketing is probably the same as it always has been. Like percentage wise, I will tell you, if you send an email blast to cold leads, that means people that don't really know you that well. Really, the percentage of, if you get 15% of them opening it, that's actually really good. But you can also see it's sort of depressing because you're like, well, what about the other percentage? They didn't even open the email. So you can increase that by sending it more than once. If they didn't open it the first time, send it the second time. It's still going to be a small percent, but I'm telling you, if you add up your numbers, it's really a numbers game. If you do an aggressive job of collecting emails, you're still going to see success. So I would not discount. And texting is the other thing that's become popular. Some would say annoying. Susan and I don't do a lot of texting, but I can tell you the times that we suck it up. I think we don't do it because we're older. So we're like, I don't want to text. I don't want people texting me. That's like the conversations me and Susan have. Why would I want to text? And then someone convinces us it's a good idea. And so we'll try it for something. Every single time we've tried it, it works really well. So, and probably better open rates than email. So that's just something that we need to get over ourselves because it's just different to us. And I mean, I use text all the time for my family, but I haven't used it a lot for marketing, but I can tell you that's the trend right now is it's very effective, become very effective from a marketing standpoint. So if you can collect text numbers, that's another way to contact people as well. So somebody said, Jess says, we use Broadly for our chat box and we love it. People use it multiple times a day. So yeah, Broadly has the ability to do that for anyone that has Broadly for some of their other services. You can check that out. All right, last minute comments about the PPP loan application.
Yes. Big news. We had last talked about the PPP forgiveness application needed to be updated because Congress passed, a bill and changed the parameters. You have longer to use the money. So that new form has been published. So you can start working on it. And that's important. I know a lot of people are hearing from their banks and the banks are kind of helping walk through some of this, which is awesome. But definitely know the timeline of what you need to do to file your forgiveness application. There is also an easy form that they created. However, I feel most of our followers will not qualify because you really have to be, basically you can't have any other employees. But there is a form, I think you're going to post, Robin, there's the instruction form and the form that will let you know maybe you can do the easy. If you're a newer business, you would qualify for the easy form, which is going to be a lot easier to fill out than that other one. But don't forget about it. This is an opportunity to get basically grant money, which never happens with our government. So I would get that form and start working on it. So if you have questions, you can work with your bank or your financial person and get it answered and get those PPP loan amounts forgiven. Yeah,
which is always good. All right, so marketing, start looking at your marketing. I'm happy to answer questions. Marketing is one of my superpowers, I've decided, but I do geek out on marketing. So if you want to know all the time talking about marketing or KPIs about marketing or different services that we use at the Dog Gurus, like Lead Pages or Infusionsoft or whatever. Like I do kind of geek out on that. Susan just rolls her eyes and is like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what she's talking about right now. But that's why we all have our lanes to be in. But I'm very passionate about doing it right because over the years, I've learned how well it works. So that's really where my passion comes from. And I've also, just like with any KPIs that we teach about, I've also seen how the KPIs become really, really magical. If you can figure out like tiny % increases in your KPIs, it translates to huge revenue dollars on the bottom line. So I've become much more educated, I guess, myself on what KPIs are important for marketing. So, but we're happy to talk about all of that. We could talk forever on just that topic. And then sales, definitely get some training in the sales department because that's going to help. That's going to help your whole team. I can guarantee you. Any amount of money you spend on sales, if it's a company that is good, you are going to get that money back hand over foot. Like it won't even be an issue. And that's really, one of the reasons we recommend Lori Davis, because we have seen really good success from her programs. So being able to implement things and tweak things in a way that helps you to sell stuff. So definitely think about that kind of thing too. Courtney said, what's the easy form? She said that's her first time.
Yeah, it just came out. It's SBA form 3508 easy. You can get it on the SBA website. I think we're gonna post a copy on our COVID
I'll
page.
post it on the COVID-19 page.
Right.
Courtney, good to hear from you. I follow you on Facebook.
Yeah. So
we met Courtney at a couple years ago. I
think Atlanta Pet Fair.
Yeah. So.
But there's a checklist that will tell you whether you are eligible to use the easy form. So anyway,
I'm putting the link to the COVID-19 page. It's not there yet, but in the next hour or so, I will post it there so you can go there and find it along with all of our other resources. But thank you guys for joining us. It's another 30-minute. It's our joke. We're going to do a 30-minute Facebook Live, and then we're always on for 50 minutes. But anyway, we're glad you guys hung in there with us. Feel free to share this. Feel free to join our Grow Your Facebook page, which is at the top of the comments, a link to that. And if you have questions, we're happy to answer them. And otherwise, we will see you next week, I think, for another Facebook Live, but I don't know. Oh my gosh, that about scared me. That was thunder in Texas.
Thunder and lightning. That one made me jump.
Man. All right. Have a great week, everybody. And we will talk to you later.